Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell here to talk some Gamecock football. The Gamecocks 6-7 in the 2016 season wrapped up the year with an overtime loss to South Florida in the Birmingham Bowl. And Wes, the Gamecocks get ready for National Signing Day coming up on February the 1st. And news this week that the Gamecocks appear to be ready to hire a new offensive line coach. Sean Elliott left the Gamecocks for the head coaching job at Georgia State, and John Latina was brought in to handle the Gamecocks offensive line coaching duties for the bowl game, but now it looks like Muschamp is ready to make a permanent hire. Wes, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Eric Wolford is going to be the new offensive line coach. Haven't completely made it, official, but it's going to happen. He's going to be the coach. He's already in Columbia, fresh off a stint with the 49ers as the assistant offensive line coach. Obviously, I think most fans are already pretty familiar with Wolford. He was here for 1 year. And I think it's a good hire. It's a guy that worked his tail off his 1 year here. He has been sort of someone that's moved around a bit, but I've heard him multiple times that he's really enjoyed his time in Columbia when he was here, wanted to get back, and I think he's ready to sort of settle into a spot and be there for a while. So this is a guy that has NFL experience, which always helps with the recruits. It's a guy that is going to work his tail off and get sitting on the recruiting trail, has a big personality. Anytime your offensive line coach can also be a recruiter, it's a bonus. But I think the biggest thing South Carolina's looking for is a guy who can develop the offensive linemen that are on campus and the guys they bring in. It's a developmental position. And Muschamp, obviously really likes Wolford and thinks he's a guy that can sort of mold these offensive linemen into a cohesive unit. Yeah,
I heard a week or more ago, Wes, that Muschamp had handpicked Eric Wolford. That was the guy that he wanted the most. And talk about Wolford. Tell our listeners a little bit more about him. He was previously the head coach at Youngstown State. Talk about his resume and talk about how big of a role he will have with recruiting. You said that the number one priority will be to develop offensive linemen, but the O-line coach helps out in recruiting as well.
Yeah, I think as far as offensive line coaches go, he's an upper echelon type recruiter. Most of the time, there are some out there. I don't want to say there's not, but there aren't near as many dynamic offensive line coach recruiters as there are maybe, like a running backs coach or a receivers coach, defensive backs coach. So traditionally, you have some of your more dynamic recruiters in those spots. But like I said, Wolford's a big personality. He's a guy that works hard at it, which is, as far as recruiting in this day and age, that's the first requirement, is you got to go after it. And Wolford's a guy that's going to do that. The big personality helps, and he'll be involved in every single, I don't think he'll have a huge recruiting territory of his own necessarily, but he'll be involved in every single offensive line prospect they go after. He'll be involved in the evaluation, the recruiting of every single one. And, his lone class that he landed here at South Carolina was very, very good. I actually have we got an article that's going to go out and probably will be up by the time our listeners are listening to this on Monday afternoon or whenever, with A.J. Can talking about being recruited by Eric Wolford and the job he did. So, Can actually never got to play for Wolford because Wolford was only here a year, but was recruited by him. And, we've talked to Marcus Lattimore, Chris Clark did. He raved about Wolford as a recruiter. I talked to one of Corey Robinson's old coaches who raved about Wolford. So, this is a guy who's going to bring intensity, who has a big personality, and obviously South Carolina will look for him to develop these guys as well. And I think that's something that was possibly missing a little bit of. I think there was a disconnect there previously. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's something that fans have to realize it's going to take time. It's not going to be a quick fix, but I think Wolford is a guy that can get the job done.
No official announcement yet from Gamecock Athletics, but Gamecock Central reporting that Eric Wolford will be the next Gamecocks offensive line coach. Wes, when can we expect a formal announcement?
Yeah, we're recording this late Monday morning. It could there could be an announcement before before our listeners are even hearing this. I think sometime Monday, probably by Tuesday, there will be something. But like I said, it's really more of a formality at this point. Wolford is in Columbia. He's basically, he's accepted the job. Muschamp has offered the job. They're just working through sort of those final details on the contract and all that stuff. So basically a formality at this point.
Very good. Emerson Phillips and Wes Mitchell with you here on Gamecock Central Radio. We invite you to download the Gamecock Central Radio app that you'll find on the App Store and on Google Play. It's a free phone app. It allows you to listen to our podcasts on your cell phone anywhere you receive cell phone service. To subscribe to our podcast, search for Gamecock Central Radio on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other popular services, or just visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. Wes, Skai Moore making news this week as well. The Gamecocks all-SEC linebacker sat out this past season with a neck injury. And there's been some uncertainty surrounding Skai. Would he be healthy enough to return to play college football, or maybe he would go pro if, in fact, he was healthy and able to move forward with his career and maybe go ahead and get in the NFL draft coming up in the spring?
Yeah, well, not an official announcement, but we've been digging on it, and Skai has told multiple people that he plans on returning to South Carolina. He'll be starting class today and plans on playing for the Gamecocks this fall, which I think, some people will probably listen and say, well, that's not news. That's always been the plan, which to that I can say it has not always been the plan. There has been a tremendous amount of, information out there that said that Skai was leaning towards, just going ahead and giving a shot at the NFL, or at least was heavily considering that at the very, very least. So, this is very big news for South Carolina. This clearly is a guy who led the team in tackles for 3 straight seasons, freshman, sophomore, junior year, and I think will be a perfect fit for Will Muschamp's defense, and really bolsters a defense that should in time be better next year, I think, than it was this year, but also has plenty of holes to fill, especially if it didn't have Skai Moore plugged in there. So, I think this is absolutely massive news for South Carolina. You're talking about a guy who I think is sort of quietly one of the best players South Carolina's had, in a long, long time. When you just look at the numbers and the impact he makes on a defense, so big news for South Carolina. January 15th is sort of the deadline where if Skai were to somehow completely change his mind in the next week, but we've seen that happen before. I believe that's what happened with Ace Sanders. But Skai was in the team meeting on Sunday. There's a team football sort of back-to-school meeting. He's supposed to be at class today, and fully intends on returning to South Carolina. And I hear he's motivated. He's been rehabbing. He's on track to be, to be cleared to be able to play and all that stuff. So I think he's on track there, and has something to prove from what I've been told. So just big news all the way around for South Carolina yesterday.
No question. Wes, when we found out that Skai Moore would have to miss the 2016 season, this was devastating news. You mentioned he had led the team in tackles 3 straight years, an all-SEC linebacker selection, one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the country. And when we found out, that was a real blow for Will Muschamp in his first year when it was discovered that Skai Moore would have to sit out this past year.
Yeah, it was, because you essentially were talking about a 3-9 football team that had already lost its best player on offense in Pharaoh Cooper, and then you were taking away its best player on defense in Skai Moore. Again, from a team that won 3 games previously. So, if you look at it from that perspective, it's all the more impressive that they were able to get to a bowl and win 6 games this year. And, I think this is something you have to look at as, once he gets cleared and actually is able to, cross that hurdle and get back on the field, just could be a major, major boost. And, you look at the linebacking core, and that position was going to be a pretty big question mark because, they lost a couple of seniors who played a bunch there, and Jonathan Walton and T.J. Holloman. Now you're talking about, in a nickel with two linebackers, you got a senior Bryson Allen Williams and a senior Skai Moore. You can go to town with those two. That's a good starting two, and then you probably have a guy like T.J. Brunson, who's a sophomore, from R&E, a rising sophomore from R&E that played some as a true freshman this year. He's probably your third linebacker. So that's a position that's still probably lacking a little bit of ideal depth, but if Skai Moore is in there, that position looks infinitely better than it does without him.
Yep, Gamecock defense improved this past year with Muschamp and Tavares Robinson handling the defense. Major improvement defensively from the 2015 season. And if South Carolina gets a healthy Skai Moore back for 2017, which it looks like they will, certainly there's reason to believe the Gamecocks could be even better on defense in 2017. So exciting news involving Skai Moore. And Wes, big month of recruiting here, and we're going to have more on recruiting here on Gamecock Central Radio coming up in the next few weeks with signing day just a few weeks away.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have another podcast between now and this weekend. This weekend is sort of the official end of the dead period leading into National Signing Day. So that means prospects can be on campus for official visits, and that coaches can head to the high schools and check in on prospects as well. So it'll be a busy few weeks for Gamecock Central, a busy few weeks for the coaching staff. And, in our podcast later on this week, we'll talk about the official visitors who are going to be in town for South Carolina this weekend.
All right, complete recruiting coverage coming up here on Gamecock Central and Gamecock Central Radio. Wes, we appreciate the update today, man. Good to be with you again.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, Emerson. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, that's my man Wes Mitchell, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us here on GCR.